Right, I guess we're live and I messed that up completely. No worries.
Oh, okay. What's happening?
How is everyone? I hope everyone is doing. And I guess that yeah, we'll have to start from like that. I'm sorry, everyone, and welcome to the show. We have Chris Shelton with us today. Welcome to him. Thank you very, very much for doing this with me, and I'm sure that you're going to teach us so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on.
No, you're welcome. And I've got the wrong screen on my. There we go. I had the wrong screen on. I'm sorry for the fail, guys, but I learned from the best, which is Team Skeptic. Thank you very much. But yes, this is going to be an exciting journey. I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I'm really grateful that you are able to join me on this, Chris.
Yeah, me too. Should be interesting.
So I just would like to know, are you keen for questions at the end of the show from the chat, if they've got any questions related to the question today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
No problem.
Cool. Okay, so guys, the topic today is, what is Scientology? Now, lots of people it's a church, it's a cult, it's a business, it's a, it could be any number. I think it's any one of those three, all of those three. It's not a church. I don't see it as a church, but that's my opinion. Chris, what's your opinion?
Well, I agree. I see it as a number of different things depending on how you decide or want to look at it. You can make a valid case that the Church of Scientology is a church. We call it the Church of Scientology, right? But at the same time, my personal position is that it is not a validated, credible religion. It is a scam using religious cloaking to hide what it really is. And that's how I look at Scientology. Religion and churches have very wide, expansive definitions, though. So it's I have to be a little academically honest about the whole thing at the same time. But it's a scam. It's a scam. It's a scam. It's a scam.
Yes, I completely agree. Out of my nervousness, I forgot to thank everybody for joining us today in the chat. This is not the first time I've been on camera, but I am nervous for this type of show. It's not. Haven't been on camera on YouTube before. So thank you to everyone in the chat. I see Clive, Bacon Earth, Pip. I see Alien X Gaming. I see Mr. Andrat. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I'm hoping that you guys learned something new today. And I think that would be amazing to learn. I mean, everybody knows a lot about Scientology, but to learn something new is a great thing. Hi, Linda. Nice of you to join us today.
Hey,
so, yes, so I'm guessing that's one of your subscribers.
Yeah, I remember.
Welcome, Linda. Right, so what is Scientology? In a nutshell, we've already just described that, but there is more to it than just what we've just said,
There's a lot more to it than what we just said.
Yes. So do you want to start on something on describing what is Scientology?
Absolutely. Yeah, because we're sort of taking on this question here of what is it. So we have correctly this time started and led with the idea that it is a scam. I always don't get to that until about an hour into the episode. So I'm glad we started with that this time. It is it is a destructive cult. Okay, and that is a term that means a specific thing. It's a group that has more destructive outcomes or destructive purposes or intent than it has constructive intent or purposes or outcomes. In other words, if you get involved with Scientology, the chances of you having a negative outcome are incredibly high. I can't say 100%. It's not like every single person who ever gets involved with it has a uniformly negative experience. But as my friend Mark Headley and I have joked, the end result of Scientology is leaving Scientology. Get the hell away from it, right?
Yes.
That tends to be the end product of Scientology. So,
yes.
And the reasons for that are it is a world belief system. It has its own cosmology and mythology and ideas about spiritual enlightenment and all that. That's kind of what it's about is spiritual enlightenment and improving or increasing your spiritual power or ability is the idea of the thing, right? And obviously it's all built on the idea that you are a spirit. You are not your body. This is the basic article of faith in Scientology is that you are a spiritual being. You are not your body. This is something that they believe is scientifically proven, but Scientologists have a very hard time with the concept of what science really is, because Hubbard did. And so even scientists who are in Scientology grapple with this concept because they believe that there's a scientific reason to believe that you're a spiritual being. But when you come down to the bottom line, brass tacks evidence and proof, and like show me evidence of it, they come up empty because it's all subjective. It's required that you have a subjective experience. In other words, an experience that exists totally in your mind. That convinces you that you have had an out-of-body experience, have gone what they call exterior to your body.
Yes.
So that's kind of a key part of what it is. There are lots and lots of ways that Scientology goes about trying to create this subjective experience and many others. I'm just talking about, this one basic part of it, but there's a lot more to the experience of Scientology. But that's, if we were going to get down to the brass tacks of what it is, that's kind of what it is. It's this sort of religious philosophy that deals with you as a spirit and trying to build up your spiritual potentials and abilities.
Yes. Now, if you look at it that way, for a lot of people, that doesn't sound too bad.
No,
but,
exactly.
I mean, being pagan, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that I'm a spiritual, that I'm in a meat, my spirit is in a meat suit, and I'm just living this life, type thing. And that's exactly what, that's what most, not all religions believe in reincarnation, but most of them believe in that we're just passing through this life to get to the afterlife, to get to our next life, to whatever it is that we believe. And so there's nothing wrong with what they believe in terms of that way. Right. It all starts going downhill when you look at what Scientology really is.
Well, exactly, because where the scam part comes in is I've just explained to you, sort of the central, spiritual tenet, but the practice of Scientology is not about sitting around believing that. The practice of Scientology is doing classes, and doing auditing procedure. And auditing is kind of what you might consider counseling, but I have to use that term very loosely. I only use it for purposes of analogy. I mean, Scientology auditing is in no way, shape, or form therapy or counseling as we understand it in psychology or in psychiatry. So it's Hubbard's own invention, and it relies a great deal on mechanisms of hypnosis and suggestion and trance induction and that kind of thing. There's stuff going on in auditing that is very underhanded stuff psychologically.
Yes.
But those two things, taking the classes and doing the counseling, doing the auditing, those two things are what make up the practice of Scientology.
Yes.
And neither one of those activities are things that you're going to do for free.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. You're going to pay, right?
Yes.
And you're going to pay a lot.
Yes.
You're not going to start out paying a lot. You know, it's going to be, you can go in and spend $200, which of course is not chump change. That's not, that's not money you get out of your couch, but $200 in the big scheme of things is not a tremendous amount of money. $50 class, or, $200, and we'll give you 5 hours of this auditing. And you go, okay, $40 an hour. Well, that's significantly cheaper than what a psychologist would charge me. So let's do it, right? And you go in and you do this 5 hours of Dianetics auditing, and you go back and through the Dianetics procedure, you will go back and recall painful incidents in your past, and hopefully have some kind of epiphany moment, or, oh, wow, hey, I didn't realize, that before about that thing in the past. And that's how they're just trying to hook you in. And then once they hook you, the classes, on the other hand, mostly are presenting fairly common sense principles in a fairly organized and structured way that gives you the idea it's kind of a lot more credible than it really is, but it sounds so good, right? They dress it up really well. And the window dressing of Scientology is, admittedly, it can be quite impressive. They have very nice course packs and lectures and all these beautiful buildings and pictures and all this stuff. So it looks quite upscale, but the material itself is really just very common sense stuff. So you can do those classes, or you can do the auditing, or you do a mix of both. And the further you go, once you've done your first nibble, right, then they're hooking you in, and then you do your next and your next and your next. Progressively, it costs more and more and more money, to the point where you can end up paying on the order of $1,000 an hour for that counseling, for that auditing at the highest levels.
Yes, and I think it gets worse when they tell you you've got a crime and you've got to pay for those auditing classes. And and they will go for hours to get the crimes out of you. Yes,
they will. And that's just one part of the auditing, is what's called security checking, where they're specifically going after moral transgressions that you have committed.
Yes.
But that's one aspect of auditing. There's lots of other things they do too.
Well, we will cover auditing on another show. Just today, we wanted to just cover what is Scientology, and and start off slowly and try and help people understand, Scientology. And I think maybe we can start on how Hubbard, came up with Scientology.
Oh, sure.
Because this, we know, a lot of people know that, it started with Dianetics, and we know that he gave it to the psychiatric community, and they basically laughed in his face.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the hatred for psychiatry came from.
That's the conjecture. That's the idea of it. Hubbard was a vindictive person. Personally, he did not like criticism, and he way before Scientology, this was just how he was. And so he would, as a usual course of practice, right? If somebody was criticizing him, giving him a bunch of crap, telling him his work wasn't any good or whatever, he would go on the attack, and he was very vicious about that. So Dianetics was initially, apparently, it's not like I've seen evidence that he did this, but apparently he tried to submit draft copies or works of his original thesis on the subject, and he put together these rather superfluous case examples or case studies, and he sent this over to the APA and the AMA, the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association. This was, I believe, in 1949, and they looked it over, and Hubbard was not, by training or education, a good scientist. In fact, he wasn't really a scientist at all. He flunked out of college. He bragged about having taken the world's first classes on atomic and molecular phenomena, and he failed it, which he never talked about in his lectures, right? He talked about not liking college, but he didn't talk about failing out of it. Instead, he tried to use his failures as actual credibility, right?
Yes.
So anyway, he was a really bad scientist. And he even said in one of his lectures that he admitted to being a very bad lab man. He described it, right? In other words, the kind of person who takes notes, does science right, keeps records, this kind of thing, right? Like the kind of stuff you're supposed to do if you expect any kind of peer review. Cite sources, go into the literature. Hubbard didn't do any of those things. He just made stuff up off the top of his head and said, this is science.
Yes.
And the proof of that is Dianetics. It is subtitled The Modern Science of Mental Health, and there is not one scientific thing in it.
Yes.
Not if you really know science, right? So there's no citations, there's no, there's no real experimentation, there's no documentation of experimentation. These case studies are the person's name, what they were suffering from, and how Dianetics, relieved that. That's it. That's the case study. There's no testing, there's no nothing, right? So, so it's all kind of a big joke, and that's why the AMA and APA rejected it, right? They would have looked at it and said, well, this is poppycock, right? Go do some real work and then come back. And Hubbard took that as criticism, and he responded accordingly, and he decided that wasn't the way to go. And he was friends with Joseph Campbell, I believe it was, who was the editor of Astounding magazine. And no, not Joseph Campbell, maybe it was John Campbell. John Campbell, Amazing magazine. Anyway, John Campbell. Okay, so he was a believer. John Campbell thought Hubbard was onto something. And John Campbell was the editor of one of the most popular magazines of the time in terms of where Hubbard could have published.
Yes.
So, because Hubbard had been publishing pulp fiction stories and of all kinds of genres in Astounding magazine, and I think I called it Amazing magazine. It was Astounding magazine, and other pulp fiction magazines for years. He'd been doing that. He was a professional writer. So Campbell thought Hubbard was really on to something. And they published the initial work on Dianetics in the magazine, and then they published the actual book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. And it was a raging bestseller. It took off. It was big. It went viral, so to speak.
Yes. Back then, what viral was, yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was a bestseller. And then it took off. And Hubbard didn't just publish the book and sit and collect royalties. He went out and started lecturing almost immediately and set up shop in New Jersey first, at Elizabeth, New Jersey, and then went out to LA because they had set up an organization out there. Like groups just started forming up of people taking this book and reading it and sitting down with somebody else who'd also read it and doing the Dianetics auditing procedure on one another. Which, like I said, is basically everybody learned how to hypnotize each other. I mean, it's kind of what happened. I mean, really, but it's a little bit different than that because it's mixed in with some Freudian stuff and there's psychoanalysis stuff. I mean, it's this hodgepodge of crap, but it took off. People were very, very sensationalized by it. They felt like amazing because they were remembering stuff that they had totally forgotten about in their life, and were like all amazed and delighted by these, by relieving all of their stress and trauma as what they thought they were doing with Dianetics, right? And this went on for months, actually, for all of 1950. Hubbard was sort of going back and forth in the United States, flying back and forth and lecturing, and then he wrote another book called Science of Survival, and bankrupted the organizations, eventually got a bailout by a millionaire in Kansas City. So then he set up shop in Kansas City and, Wichita, Kansas. And then that tanked. Hubbard tanked that one too, because he was an incredibly bad manager and he just spent money as fast as he got it. So then, bankrupted twice, he lost the rights to the copyright of Dianetics because the guy who bailed him out had it.
Yes.
So that's when he invented Scientology.
But
so
then how does...
answer to the short question of
So how did he get Dianetics back then? Did he purchase the copyright back?
Yeah, what they did was actually one of the first fair game operations, one of the first like actual, pressure operations that Scientology launched was against the guy who had bailed him out. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. It's not coming to me right now, but Purcell. That was it. It was Purcell. So he had the copyrights, and in 1954, I believe, Hubbard finally got it back. I think there was a lawsuit and stuff, and Purcell just moved on. He thought Dianetics was going to be the thing, and he wanted to invest in it. That's why he gave Hubbard the bailout, only to learn, like everybody else who had ever trusted Hubbard came to learn, he was a scumbag, right? He couldn't be trusted. He would steal you. He would take your money. He'd take your girl. He'd do whatever he could, and he was going to rip you off. That was Hubbard's thing. So Purcell learned that too late, and then he just wanted to wash his hands of it and just get the whole thing off his plate. And he ended up either giving it back or through court lost the copyright, and Hubbard got it back. Anyway, through whatever chicanery, he got it back, and that's when Dianetics and Scientology unified in 1955.
I'm very surprised the psychiatrists and those associations didn't say anything to the IRS or anything to maybe when they got their tax exemption the first time to say, this is what he did a couple months ago, a year or so ago with us, and now he's taking he's making it a religion. So this is not new. This is not a religion. He tried to make this, a psychiatric practice, and now he's made a religion because we said no. So I don't understand why those associations didn't go to the IRS and say, well, yeah, this is why it's not a religion. I know they lost it the first time.
No, the IRS is never, ever, ever going to judge whether a group is validly a religion or not. What the IRS has is a checklist of things that you have to meet in order to qualify for tax-exempt status under the IRS 501c3 tax code. And what they do is they grant you status as a religious organization, 501c3, if you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. And almost anyone can pull off A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They are incredibly easy to do. So easy that John Oliver set up his own nonprofit church under 501c3. He did the exact steps you need to do, and he got a valid nonprofit church organization set up called the Church of Immaculate Donations or something. And it was a big joke, but he did it for his show to prove how lax the IRS is in granting tax-exempt religious status to almost any organization that asks for it, if they have a creed, if they have that can show that there is some sort of worship or prayer or supernatural service. Because remember, Buddhists and pagans can be religions too. You don't have to have a prayer to Jesus or a cross in order to be a religion, right? Wiccans are religions. The Church of Satan is a religion. The Scientology is a religion. The Buddhists, the Lamaists, the Confucianists, all of these are religions. So it's a very broad thing. And the thing that they are missing in terms of a critique, the thing the IRS doesn't have in its list of requirements that, say, the United Kingdom has, the public benefits test.
Yes, I think we'll cover tax exempt status. I want to actually have a look at what our revenue service requirements are for tax exempt status. I mean, we have now our revenue service just slipped my mind. SARS, South African Revenue Service, and I want to see what our recommendations are for tax exempt status, because they also have it here. So I think we will cover tax exempt status on another show.
Right.
Because we could talk for days on Scientology, to be honest. We really could.
Oh, that's for sure. Now, wait a minute. So in South Africa, the name of the tax collection agency is SARS?
Yes. South African Revenue Service, yes. Why? What is funny?
Because that's also the abbreviation for severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS COVID-19. I mean, it's a disease, you know.
I just realized that now, yes.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Okay, we all learned something today. That's awesome. So anyway, yeah. So so they did get, in terms of Scientology and stuff, we can go off the tax exemption, but they did get official church recognition in 1956. And that was the IRS. And then there were court cases, because those are two different things. You get legally recognized as a religion in the courts, and that's another point of foundational support and solidification that you are a religion, is when there's a court case and the courts recognize you as a religious organization. So that was that. Both of those things happened in the 1950s, I believe, and they kept that tax exempt status as a church until 1967, and then they lost it, and then they got it back in 93.
Yes. All right, we're going off topic again on tax exempt status.
I just wanted to finish the thought.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's all good. That's all good. So because he decided that, you know, he didn't like criticism and so on, he decided that he's going to make it a religion. And I think it's dangerous that anybody can make a religion. I
do too, especially without a public benefits test, because religion is, you know, anybody, and the thing is, anybody can make a religion. You know, the thing about religion, I mean, if you really step back and look at religion, I mean, you're just talking about it's not just a belief set, but it does start with that. It eventually grows into a culture. And that's where cult comes from.
Yes.
Culture. It's not just a set of ideas. And this is something that is, it seems to be not well understood in the online atheist world. So I sort of throw it out as a little bit of a criticism, because it's a multi-layered thing, right? And anybody really can start one if you can come up with a set of ideas and get other people to start, you know, glomming onto and believing them. You're away. It's that easy.
Yes. I mean, I looked up, I think it was actually really recently. I think it was early 2000s, or maybe middle of 2000s, that paganism was eventually recognized as religion. And paganism has been going on about 35,000 years. Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly a religion.
Yes. But it's only recognized like recently. I think it was it was in the 70s paganism was really realized as a religion. And that's around about the time of, you know, naturism and free love, and, you know, everybody was getting into that. Actually, that was the 60s, but I think it's still carried on into the 70s. So, but for something to have been around for so long, only now being recognized as religion, it tells you how much the Catholic Church or the Christian churches, more Catholic than anything else, had such a grasp on religion, you know, through the 10th, 11th, all the way up to the 18th century, maybe even 19th centuries, you know. Sure. So, I mean, I think, I'm also now going off topic. I'm sorry, guys. But I just think that this is what Scientology is just bare bones. It's just a money-making scheme. That's it. Yep. I mean, to be able to have to prepay for services should tell everyone that it's a business. If you're getting a sale because you're buying a package, it should tell you it's a business. Yeah. You know, no church tells you have to prepay. There's tithings, which is great. That's fine. You're helping your church. That's fine. I've got nothing wrong with that, helping the church. Nothing wrong with that. But when you have to prepay for a service, or you have to pay to receive counseling from, not even your pastor, but from someone else. And you're paying so much money for this. It's a business. There's no way else of saying it.
I agree.
I know I've been through this. I mean, I've been following Scientology for 2-3 years now, and sometimes I still cannot grasp that this religion is still around, that they're still able to get away with this, that no one is actually following forward on them actually doing the community services that they're supposed to be doing. Because if they were doing the community services that they were supposed to be doing, they wouldn't be a $3 billion church or religion. You know?
You'd think. I mean, that's where that public benefits test comes in. In the United States, it's a cultural problem in the U.S. I mean, you understand, it's not just Scientology. We have a cult problem, and and it's not just in the United States that we have a cult problem. It's part of our nature that we have a cult problem, but it is institutionalized in the United States because of the it's the flip side of the coin to freedom of religion and freedom of thought, freedom of belief, freedom of speech. When you give people unlimited freedoms like that, and they're not unlimited, but they are certainly much more broadly realized and practiced in America than they are in other areas of the world, where governments or long-term institutions like the Catholic Church or others can mandate behavior, can mandate belief. Not so much in the U.S. and the tradition is a bit different here. So we might go too far the other direction. That is true. And I'm not on some big, U.S. versus the rest of the world statement here. I'm just trying to compare and contrast. And the flip side of that, those freedoms is you're going to have abuses of those freedoms. Yes. And the difficulty of our culture, one of the mainline difficulties of the American society is the constant public argument and debate over drawing where should the line be in the sand as to where you've gone too far. And the line's constantly shifting. Context shifts the line. Times and cultural values and morals shift the line. And we're seeing the line shifting, like, with abortion, stuff like that. Certain gender issues are certainly shifting in American culture, because of changes. And this cult stuff is all part of that. It's all wrapped up in this. Yes. So it's kind of a consequence of that. And I'm not sure what the solution is on a long term. I can just comment on that much of it,
Yes. I think if there's anything else that you'd like to cover in terms of what Scientology is and how it came to be, now's the time. Because I think we can get some questions in.
Yeah, because let me say a little bit more about the model of Scientology and then today, right? Because in terms of what it is. Hubbard studied or knew about, and also let's not forget, Hubbard grew up in the early 1900s. He was born in 1911 in the Midwest. The world's very different place in 1911. Yes. I can't stress that enough.
Yes.
The things that were important in that time period and when Hubbard was growing up, religiously, culturally, what was on people's minds, the things people talked about, were incredibly different from what is on people's minds now in terms of religion, okay? Because remember, this is the time when spiritualism, when Madame Blavatsky and theosophy and theology, and this is the time when Christian Science was coming up. There were a lot of spiritual-based philosophies and ideas being thrown around. And this was a threat to the church, which is why fundamentalism came around at this time period. The fundamentalists are based on a series of books called The Fundamentals, which were written in response to this rise of alternate beliefs. Part of those alternate beliefs, and this involves Aleister Crowley and his belief system, right, Thelema, and which became the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, were on this whole spiritualism philosophy. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Hubbard was a student of all this stuff.
Yes.
He built Scientology on the back of Blavatsky and Crowley and 18th, 19th century spiritualism.
Yes.
And there's a concept in here that's really important, which mixes in with much earlier practices, Gnosticism, Gnostic practices. I don't want to throw too many words around, but this stuff is all kind of a hash. Scientology is kind of a hash of this earlier stuff mixed in with Hubbard's crazy ideas.
Yes.
So what you have is a system not just of a static belief set, but you have a series of steps that you're supposed to ascend. And this is built on this philosophy of ascendant masters, that you're going to be able to go up levels of indoctrination or levels of awareness and ability that you're going to climb like these stairs. And in Scientology, this is referred to as a bridge. Instead of staircase, they make an analogy of a bridge across a chasm of darkness and ignorance to a place of better understanding and spiritual enlightenment. Yes. And that bridge is a series of ever increasing costing money, right? It's more and more expensive as you go. Yes. But that's the basic concept and what it's built on. So, excuse me, that's how Scientology is practiced, is that these classes and the auditing is, it's not just you walk in one day and they tell you all about Xenu.
Yes.
Right? Yes. In South Park, right? It's not like that. You have to climb the steps to get there. And those steps are going to cost you money. They are going to take time, and they are going to require a lot of dedicated effort on your part, because there are loyalty tests along the way. Yeah. Right? You're not going to get through this gate until we know that we can trust you to keep our secrets.
Yes.
Et cetera, right? And there are a lot of levels in Scientology. It's not just 2 or 3 steps. It's more like about 25 or 30.
So by the time you actually get to Xenu or learning about Xenu, that's when they know they can trust you, because you're so far in that might as well finish, kind of thing. You know, like Leah Remini's mom did.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
But I think the other thing that we will need to discuss at some point is the 8 dynamics. That would be something we'll need to discuss. I think that's what they tell you more about when you first begin in Scientology. Like you say, you don't learn about Xenu until you get to OT3. Yep. And so you learn about the 8 dynamics. I'm guessing you learn about that in Dianetics? Or is that the 8 dynamics?
Oh, actually, Dianetics, in the book Dianetics, The Minor Science of Mental Health, there were only 4 dynamics.
Okay.
Hubbard expanded it to 8 a couple of years later.
Okay, but I think that will be our next topic we will discover, is that discuss will be the 8 dynamics. Yeah. I want to do some research on that, because everything that I've watched is they don't really cover it much. So I'd like to do some research on that. And so
I did a video on the 8 dynamics. I think you can find it on my channel too.
I'll definitely do that. Now, I know that we have a question from Jessica. It's the only question that we've had at the moment. We have, Chris, did you ever get to see firsthand the mural of Hubbard's Stolen Valor?
Yeah, I believe that question was in reference to the L. Ron Hubbard Library, or L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition. That is in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, at this building they have. The whole first floor of this building, it's an old bank building, and they hollowed out the first floor and created this life exhibition of Hubbard. And the end of the exhibit, it takes you about an hour to go through it, and they give you this whole bullshit story about Hubbard's life. And then at the end are this overwhelming number of plaques and awards and certificates and ranks and bullshit that Hubbard got. And it's intended to overwhelm you with how amazing Hubbard is for having, it's just wall after wall after wall opens, and it's just all these, ridiculous certificates and stuff. And yes, I have seen that. And I did not learn even about the concept of stolen valor, much less how Hubbard did that. And after I got out of Scientology, I thought all that stuff was true and Hubbard really was a war hero, but he not. He was a scumbag. He really did engage in stolen valor.
Yes.
He made claims that he got awards, that he got a Purple Heart, that he got all this other stuff that he did not get and did not earn and should never. And the church has just been shameless in how they have perpetuated this nonsense about Hubbard's life story.
Yes. I know that he got ribbons, I think you called them ribbons, from countries he didn't even serve for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really, it's crazy. This is so well documented. There have been a couple people, Chris Owens and another guy whose name escapes me right now, on Tony Ortega's blog, fairly recently, I think within the last 2 months, they posted an article about breaking down ribbon by ribbon, campaign bar by campaign bar, what Hubbard claimed he earned, and then how it was all actually bullshit. And he earned things, so.
Yeah. Okay, guys, the questions we are relating to is with regards to the topic of what Scientology is and how it came to be. So if we can keep our topics or questions to those topics. Then I have one from Bacon Earth who said, do you get questions from new members about the reasons why the organization is so secretive? And I think that's a good lead from the previous one where you say how secretive they are about, his real army time in the military. They know his real files. I mean, it's public knowledge. They know what he was really like in the army. I'm sure. I don't think they. I'm sure David Miscavige really knows what Hubbard went through.
Yeah, there's probably 2 people in all of Scientology who actually know the truth about Hubbard's stolen valor.
Sorry, yes, that's the wording I was looking for.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people. It's not like Scientologists are all in on this.
Yes.
It's the opposite.
Yes. Yes. So the question is, do you get questions from new members about the reasons why the organization is so secretive?
Yeah. If I understand the question right, that would be like if a new Scientologist was asking, hey, how come the organization's so secretive? And what they would be told is, well, look at all the lies that are told on the internet every single day. Everything about us that you read on the internet is a lie. You are not, I mean, unless you go to Scientology.org, our own this is Scientologist speaking now, right? I'm not saying that this is true. I'm just answering the question.
Yes.
They would say, well, go to Scientology.org because everything else you're going to read about Scientology on the internet is going to be from people who either have an axe to grind or who are being paid to attack us or who have a vested interest in you not succeeding or doing well. They want to suppress you. They want to keep you down. They want you to have a bad life because the more you're suppressed, the more power and influence they have. And it's very nebulous, sort of us versus them kind of, in group, out group sort of thing. But
yes.
That's how they would address that. That's how they would talk about that. And I used to say shit like that. So
yes. Yeah. I have a question from Linda, which is, how has COVID affected the daily routine of the orgs? Now, I know that's not part of our conversation at the moment, but I think we can answer Linda's question quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's certainly disrupted it. We have boarded up orgs. We have orgs. Sorry, they don't even call. Here's another clue that Scientology is not really a religion, even amongst its own people, is we never called them churches.
Yes.
Every organization of Scientology is a building and it's a corporation, right? As with any other church organization. But we never called them churches. We call them orgs, which is short for organizations.
Yes.
Right? Oh, I'm going down to the org. I'm going to go take a class at the org. I got to go down to the org to get some auditing. That's how Scientologists talk. They never say, I got to go down to the church.
Yes.
So talk about it that way, right? Which is interesting. But when you look at the business model and then you look at how they talk about it, you're kind of like, where's the religion here?
Yeah, I actually never thought about it that way. I mean, I've never thought about how they don't call it religion.
Yeah,
I mean, they call it a church. I'm sorry.
No, they don't. We would actually laugh about it. And the reason this is about as far as Scientologists are actually in on the scam, okay? Believe me, they really do believe that it's valid. They really believe it works. They are totally convinced that Hubbard knew what he was talking about. So because of all those things, they believe that it is a legal point that the church is called a church, that it's really just for tax exempt purposes, that's how they comply with certain laws and make their way through the world. But it's kind of a necessary evil that they call it a church. Nobody really cares about its church status as Scientologists. You see what I mean? So they, so anyway, that's just kind of commentary about how the believers are. But as far as how they've held up during this year of COVID, it's been rough because the orgs are all boarded up. And a lot of them, I mean, not all of them, but a bunch of them. And they are not able to go out and do what they call body routing, where they go out at the street and try to sell you a book or hand you a magazine or get you to come in. They're trying to route your body into their organization. That's why they call it body.
Yes.
They have not been able to do that all year for obvious reasons. They have not been able to do their big events, their internal rallies that they do. They haven't been able to hold those. And this has, without question in my mind, this has negatively affected the membership. I don't see how it couldn't, because with all this time people have had on their hands over the last year to be online and engage, you know, and not get the constant re-indoctrination by going down to the org or by going to the rallies and the events, you know, start busting out of the mindset. It does require, one thing people need to realize about being in a cult is it does require constant re-indoctrination from a lot of people. Not everybody, but a lot of people need a constant reminder. That's why you got to go to church every Sunday, because they got to keep hitting you.
Yes.
You know.
But now, without the big events, when they give you this big whole thing of we've done this today, this year, and we've done this, and we've you know, reached out to so many people, and without those, the re-indoctrination gets harder. Yeah,
that's right, much harder.
And I think after COVID, it's going to start getting harder to keep people in.
I think so. I think that, you know, they already have now. Scientology has created their own problems. Believe me, this is 100% internally created by Scientology. They have created a very toxic image of Scientology, right? And what we have done as ex-members or journalists and scientists and scholars have done is expose how abusive the organization is. And it is an abusive organization. They do abuse people. I was physically, psychologically, financially, emotionally, any word you want to qualify, I was abused in that group. And that's routine, expected, normal behavior in that group. I'm not an exception to some rule. I was a regular average Scientologist. So that's the order of the day there.
Yes. And I think that, oh, damn it, now I've just gone blank.
I'm sorry?
I've just gone blank. Oh my goodness.
We were discussing COVID and Scientologists and the orgs and how that was affecting things. And then I talked about the abusive nature of it.
Yeah, no, it's gone. It's gone. I think what the other thing that was on my mind was like the people that are abused, like yourself. Oh, no, I remember what I was going to say. Let me quickly put that in. I'm hoping that with your help that I'll be along the line, you know, I'll be in there helping people stay out of or not get into Scientology or stay away from Scientology or give them the tools to help someone else out of Scientology.
Let me please say out loud right now, while it's still, before I forget, every single person who does anything to help get the word out about this is helping and is going to have a positive effect out there.
Yes.
I have been constantly surprised over the years, and very, very pleased, of course, but always surprised at the way that my work gets out into places I never imagined it would go, and helps people in ways I never imagined it would. I mean, talking about Scientology can help a JW get out of a cult situation. I mean, it really is quite wild how it doesn't maybe necessarily look like we're doing a whole lot, but we actually are.
Yes, yes. And I mean, the community that I'm coming from was, we are, you know, at first when I first started this community, it was all, you know, flat earth and anti-maskers and such like that. So I think we call ourselves the skeptic community, but we first started off as flat earth, anti-flat earthers type thing, you know. So we made fun of them and we laughed at them and we asked them the hard questions and so on and so forth. So to bring this to a different community that's not really, that don't really talk about cults or Scientology and so on and so forth, that was what I want to do, is just to bring it to a whole different community. Right. And I'm hoping that this is something that they enjoy. And it sounds like they do with some of the questions that they're coming up with, and having 17 people watch me is great, you know. So, and I thank everyone for actually being here on this first episode. And I'm looking forward to another 12, maybe more. Another 12 for the year, should we say. I've got another question by Bacon Earth. He says, do they teach you how to pitch the idea of Scientology to people?
Yes, they do. There's a whole technique for it. I will summarize it by saying it is 4 steps: contact, handle, salvage, bring to understanding.
Take their money. You forgot that.
Right. I do teach a method of contacting, addressing any sort of bad ideas the person has about Scientology first, and enlightening them about it, and then bringing them into the organization. That's what those 4 steps are. Okay.
I have one. I think it's quite funny. Clive Wells says he knows someone, let's call him JLW, who believes in ghosts and woo-woo. Would that make him more of a target for Scientology?
Yes, those things, those belief sets would be friendly to or allied to Scientology's beliefs. They would be susceptible to it. But I got to stress when I answer questions like that, that I really, really want to get across the idea here that everybody is susceptible to cult recruitment. There isn't anybody who's immune to this. And there is no personality type that's more drawn to a cult than any other personality type. It's all a matter of context and the conditions of your life and your emotional situation. That has way more to do with it than your intelligence, your education, your upbringing, your language or culture.
So Dr. Clive Wells, that means you could also be susceptible to Scientology.
Anybody can. Now, let me qualify. I didn't say susceptible to Scientology.
It's the ideas.
Susceptible to a cultic indoctrination.
Okay.
It might not be Scientology that's going to get you. It might be the JWs who are going to get you. Or it might be the Mormons who are going to get you. Or it might be the Hare Krishnas who are going to get you. Or it might be the Branch Davidians who are going to get you. Or it might not be religion at all. It might be Nexium or Enron that are going to get you. It could be a business cult. You could fall into a cultic situation at a martial arts dojo. And many do, by the way. It's way more common in martial arts dojos than you might imagine. So it's not a matter of even it being a religious thing. And I only bring this up because I have to stress this stuff because too many people think that they are immune to it, or that because they know about Scientology, they're not going to get hit by it when it comes at them in a completely different context. And it's really important that this is why the critical thinking is the armor. It's the only armor you've got is your critical thinking skills, and I just can't stress that enough.
I think a good business cult would be Amway.
Yeah.
My parents got into Amway. And And I think it took them 1.5 years before they realized it was crap.
My parents got involved in Amway while they were in Scientology.
Oh.
And they recognized it after a year as crazy, and they got out of it too, but they stayed in Scientology. So, it's not like this just has to be a one at a time thing either.
Yes.
You can be involved in multiples of this crap at the same time.
But just remember that Amway is not recognized as a religion. That's where the difference comes in.
And I'm glad this came up, because cults are not just religions. That's where that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yes. So I have another question from Bacon Earth. He says, are some of the techniques you learned while in Scientology helped you get people out of it?
Yeah, good question. And I'm going to say absolutely not. And in fact, just the opposite. The techniques that are used in Scientology to get people in and to retain them are thought reform techniques. They're underhanded. They're devious. They rely on logical fallacies to work. Appeal to authority, appeal to emotion are the two biggest ones, but there are a whole litany. There's a host of them.
Yes.
I would not use those same techniques to try to get somebody out of that situation. That's the kind of crap that got done in the 1980s when they were doing this quote unquote deprogramming bullshit. That's not right. They would kidnap people. They would stick them in a room for 3 or 4 days and yell and scream at them about how bad Scientology is. And they would try to use thought reform, coercive techniques, even physically abusive techniques, to try to, drive the Scientology out of these people. And, that's tantamount to, a really badly performed exorcism. I mean, it's just really bad for people universally. You don't want to do anything like that. A good intervention at this point looks a hell of a lot more like a calm, chill conversation than it does anything Scientology's doing or anything the deprogrammers in the 80s were doing. You have to get, if you want a long-term, lasting solution to getting somebody out of a cultic headspace, you can only do it by inviting them out of it. They have to walk themselves out of it.
Yes.
And that's not how you get it is, but it's through deceptive means that you walk into it. You are walked into it deceptively.
Yes.
There is a degree of deception involved in doing an intervention. You can't just be upfront about everything all at the beginning, or the person's not gonna listen to you. But there are ways of doing interventions without ever lying to the person, or setting up a false or a fake situation, or having to tell them you're somebody you're not. You would never want to do that in an intervention or in a situation where you're trying to get somebody out of a cultic situation. And it's harder. It's a hell of a lot easier to do it wrong. But the results are a lot less certain, and the chances of a person sliding back into it are greater if you screw it up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. All right. Are there any more questions from the chat?
Yeah, it's good questions.
There are some really good questions here. I know they're not on topic, but that's fine. I'm sure.
Get used to that with Scientology.
I have my channel manager on the side. He says to me, just relax on the off-topic questions, okay? I'm like, okay, you should answer them all, because I've become to realize that no matter what, we will still have questions on every show, regardless if they're on topic or not.
That's right.
And so we will never be able to get through all of them. So we might as well just answer them as they come.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's it for today. It's a nice short show.
Yeah. This was fun.
This was fun. So on your two channels, Chris Shelton and Critical Clips.
Yep.
What do you have coming up?
Well, in fact, we did a podcast that I just posted today on MLMs, on multi-level marketing, and talk about Amway specifically.
There we go.
Yeah. It's actually a really great podcast. I hope you guys will check it out. I talked to a guy named Robert Fitzpatrick who just wrote a whole book on multi-level marketing and the whole history and scam of it, how it works, all of it. Absolutely fascinating stuff. So the last 2 weeks we've been covering MLMs on my podcast. This I'll have a lot. We're going to be doing a live stream just like this tomorrow, Q&A show on. So I'll be online tomorrow. I believe I'm going to do it around 11 a.m. my time tomorrow, Denver time. So same time as we did this show here today. And I will be answering questions. So if anybody here wants to join me on my channel tomorrow for that and ask me more questions, I'll be there.
Well, guys, all the links are in the description. They're also on the screen under Chris's camera. So if you need anything, they're all there. What I'll do on each episode is I will link a bunch of let's just say YouTube channels, books to read, podcasts to listen to, movies to watch, YouTubers to watch. I'll link them all. I'll make it a comment and I'll pin that comment because otherwise the description is just going to get too long and people are not going to read everything.
Right.
So I'll put that as a pinned comment just so that at least it's something that can be picked up by everyone. And I'll do that through every episode. On my next show will be next week Saturday. I'll have Punchy on Out of This World Thinking. Looking forward to that. We've had him and I've had a conversation before on thinking out of this world, and he's a very to the point kind of guy. And our conversation ended in 15 minutes on a few questions. So I said to him, "You need to think about this, Tal. You need to think about it. Think out of the box. Don't be on point all the time. Just make a conversation out of it. Think a bit differently, kind of thing." But yes, I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then as for our EndGame Scientology EndGame stream, which is this, watch the space. I will definitely let you guys know on Twitter. You can follow me. My link is in the description and on screen as well. I'll let you guys know when the next episode is. It won't be exactly every third week of a month because either Chris may have something or I may have something. So we'll definitely let you guys know when we'll be on. And yes, Chris will be joining me with every episode. So there'll be from here at the moment, we've got 11 episodes left for the year, which I think is amazing. 11 episodes is still not enough, but it's fine. When Chris is finished studying, maybe he'll give me more of his time. No, quickly, one more question. Jessica says, we won't stop until Chris gets Tom Cruise on the show. I will not allow him on my show. I will not allow Tom Cruise on my show. Honestly, I won't.
Oh, I'll on my show.
You can have him, and then I'll send everybody to you because I don't want him on my show.
Oh, I've got a few sharp and pointed questions for Tom Cruise.
And I'll send everyone to you. So thanks, Jessica, for that question. All right, guys. I think that's about it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next week, Saturday, for In Out of This World Thinking. Bye, everyone.
Right.
Hot mic.
Yes, good.